how bad are things?
Well, it's been, I think, a real challenge during COVID. In some ways, you'd say we've been in peak for 18 months. We had a very successful peak last year with very high service levels. We'll use the same peak, basically, playbook for 2021. But throughout the period, we've also been delivering vaccines. So we've delivered 600 million vaccines so far this year. And we'll deliver 1 billion by the end of the year. But, in the last probably 2 months, in addition to some of the supply challenges relative to our industry, there have also been a number of manufacturing shutdowns and lockdowns that have rolled across Asia as countries have dealt with COVID. So they've stressed inventory levels. So it's going to be a challenging season, and I think ordering early would be wise.
How are you managing these supply chain bottlenecks now ahead of the Christmas shopping season? Are you going to be able to meet demand, or is there a risk that of these shortages and products are just not going to get through on time?
So we've continued to add capacity across our integrated network, supporting customers in 220 countries and territories around the world. We've opened new facilities in Europe, for example, the UK, Czech Republic, and Spain. So customers are relying upon us to support their growth. And as a result, in fact, we're announcing early for planning purposes that we will have the lowest really in ever, a 2.8% rate increase versus this year. So we're helping our customers work their way through the preparation for this peak, but also start the planning for 2022. We're seeing a broader shift, which is supply chains are being redesigned. They're moving towards more of the intra-regional, moving assembly and manufacturing closer to manufacture towards the consumption, away from some of the intercontinental stress that has been seen over the last 12 months. And I think that many companies are seeing this as a safeguard against some of the shocks that they've experienced in the last 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point on just building and keeping more inventory, Scott, since you mentioned that you're upping capacity, do you expect these tight conditions to pretty much be more permanent?
I think what's not really understood is how much cargo is actually carried in the belly of passenger aircraft. And a lot of that aircraft and that capacity is grounded right now. So we have seen a surge in volume. We've added 6 747-8s, which are the largest and most efficient freighter aircraft, bringing our number to 28 as part of our overall global fleet. So we are adding capacity to grapple with this. Overall, though, we do see that there is going to continue to be a bit of a mismatch between supply and demand, and we think that's going to continue well into next year.
Is that going to affect rates in any way? What does this mean for pricing, Scott?
Well, as I mentioned, a 2.8% increase is what we're doing next year over this year's rates. This year had a lot of demand surcharges, so that 2.8% net growth over this year we think will help our customers. It is going to help us just cover inflation, and we think it signals our customers that we are there to support them as we go into probably another challenging year in 2022.
Scott, and a little bit more on that. How are you now planning, and what assumptions do you have over the next 18 months or so in terms of planning your business and keeping or increasing the capacity that you just mentioned there? Because there's so many moving parts, and for someone like you, this can be a massive headache.
Well, we wish we had a crystal ball, David. Honestly, it has been an interesting period. We have a very flexible network. We are used to, during a peak period, that you can see surges of 50 and 60%. So we've got the ability to flex our network. But I think the COVID situation is still unclear in terms of how lockdowns, travel restrictions, et cetera, challenge many sort of traditional brick and mortar or other type of online shopping, for example. So we've been surprised by how strong cross-border e-commerce. Our assumption is that if you can't travel home, you order from home. So we've been facilitating a really high number of cross-border B2C shipments. As the largest brokerage company in the world, we're leveraging an AI tool called IKB, or the International Knowledge Base, because a lot of those shippers are SMBs, and it's been very interesting how many SMBs are looking to get themselves on platform to ship cross-border. I think that's part of this adjustment as we go through the next 18 months. We think there's been an acceleration of about 3 years, roughly, of online shopping behavior that has moved forward as a result of the pandemic.
And talk to us how that these changes, these trends change how you do business, is there any reason to think that you're going to change the types of planes that you use on certain routes, or even expanding your fleet now?
So, it's basically domestic, intra-regional, intercontinental. Some of that volume may shift, but overall demand in terms of tonnage that will move over the next coming years, we don't believe will do anything but grow. So as a result, we're able to move around our aircraft. We move around our feeder trucks, for example, in Europe. So I don't see anything other than continuing to add the capacity for increased demand. The origin destination pairs may shift a little bit. In particular as a result of this intra-regionalization that we're seeing. But it's going to take several years for that to, I think, materially affect where we see some of the volume sourcing from.
Scott, let's end in a bright spot, well, hopefully here. Within the next couple of months or so, are you getting any early indications of what might improve as far as these conditions are concerned?
It's difficult to say. For us, frankly, we are so broad across so many markets. We work very closely with regulators to ensure that we're supporting the local rules, whether it be, the safety of our employees, the safety of our pilots. So we're able to adapt. And as I said, I really wish I could say by the end of this year or by next year with certainty that there's some normality. I don't think anyone knows.